Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om 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 Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Continuing, Canto 3, Chapter 13. Text 12. Yeah. These are instructions by Lord Brahma to his son Swami Maharaja. At the very, very beginning of creation. O King, text 12. O King, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. When the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned souls, certainly the master of the senses will be very pleased with you. Purport. The whole administrative system is arranged for the purpose of going back home, back to Godhead. Brahma is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Manu is the representative of Brahma. Similarly, all other kings on different planets of the universe are representatives of Manu. The law book for the entire human society is the Manu Samhita, which directs all activities towards the transcendental service of the Lord. Every king, therefore, must know that his responsibility in administration is not merely to extract taxes from the citizens, but to see personally that the citizens under him are being trained in Vishnu worship. Everyone must be educated in Vishnu worship and engaged in the devotional service of Rishikesha, the owner of the senses. The conditioned souls are meant not to satisfy their material senses, but to satisfy the senses of Rishikesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of the complete administrative system. One who knows the secret, as disclosed here in the version of Brahma, is the perfect administrative head. One who does not know this is a show-bottle administrator. By training the citizens in the devotional service of the Lord, the head of a state can be free in his responsibility. Otherwise, he will fail in the onerous duty entrusted to him and thus be punishable by the supreme authority. There is no alternative in the discharge of administrative duty. We'll add one more, text 13, from those continuing here. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Janardana, Lord Krishna, is the form to accept all the results of sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, with a capital S, and therefore one who does not satisfy him certainly neglects his own interests. Purport. Brahma is deputed as the supreme head of the universal affairs, and he, in his turn, deputes Manu and others as French word, charges of the affairs, of the material manifestation. But the whole show is for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahma knows how to satisfy the Lord, and similarly persons engaged in the line of Brahma's plan of activities also know how to satisfy the Lord. The Lord is satisfied by the process of devotional service, consisting of the ninefold processes of hearing, chanting, etc. It is in one's self-interest to execute prescribed devotional service, and anyone who neglects this process neglects his own self-interest. Everyone wants to satisfy his senses, but above the senses is the mind, above the mind is the intelligence, above the intelligence is the individual self, and above the individual self is the super-self. Above even the super-self is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva, the primeval Lord, and the cause of all causes is Sri Krishna. The complete process of perfectional service is to render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna, who is known as Janardana. Starting even in the early stages of Canto 1, and expanded again here in Canto 3, are delineation again and again and again about the duties of an administrative head. Many places in Canto 1, the Maharaj Parikshit and his qualification, his duties, the teachings of Bhishma Dev to Yudhisthira, the duties of a king, etc. So here it's very important. I mean, it's obvious, but to state the obvious, Prabhupada would speak over and over. Every function needs a leader. Every organization, he would say to public audiences, I'm the head of this organization. But without the head, without a leader, there isn't any party, meaning a group. It has to be a group. It's just, that's... So, leaders lead. One of my godbrothers has this cute expression. There's one common thing about all leaders, and that is they have followers. And leaders have to know what the goal is. And they have to know how to get there. At least they have to know what the goal is. And some principles of how to get there. Manu, being one of the 12 Mahajans, is certainly one of those leaders. So he's not just, he is an administrator, but an administrator must also be Rishi, a qualified leader like Manu. And he already exhibited the submission aspect, the preparedness for instruction to carry out some services aspect. So Brahma is the qualified instructor. Oh, I forgot to send you that document. Remind me. Okay. Qualification of Brahma is already given, and so he's the leaders of mankind. Manu specifically gives laws for mankind. And I've not been able to find any reference that gives a really clear answer about, does this include demigods? Like, does mankind mean, what does it mean? Where's the boundary? Where's the limit? Are the demigods also part of the 400,000 species? He didn't say it here in this purport, but it seems to imply that the laws of mankind, Manu Samhita, applies to demigods also. So it's codes or injunctions how to live life in this temporary creation. Laws for mankind, Manu Samhita. And so how does he get the capacity to make Manu Samhita, to make laws for mankind? By hearing from Brahma. And Brahma instructs him. Of course, we're only getting snippets, we're not getting the full extent of how Brahma is instructing. But we're getting principles, but one can, it's sensible, it's inductively logical that he gave thorough instruction. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave thorough instruction to Sanatana Goswami. Imagine 2 months every day. That's a long seminar. And Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is instructing Sanatana Goswami so that he can write books and give leadership. So he became the leader amongst the Vaishnavas. In another sense, Rupa Goswami was instructed for a much shorter period of time, but in another sense, he was given full mercy. In any case, Sanatana Goswami was previously a minister, which means he was already conversant in how to lead. He's very, intelligent, not only in scripture and in language, but he was intelligent in leadership. And then, so that with that gift from Krishna, he then got spiritual instruction. And the starting part of this spiritual instruction is, what am I? Because without that foundational piece in place, what good does all of the other valuable endowments that Sanatana Goswami or any one of us may have without that foundational one? Now, to know what I am, not even, he doesn't say who I am, Prabhupada repeatedly says what I am, meaning I'm spirit soul, but that's a who, not just a what. And what do spirit souls do? They serve Krishna. So the emphasis here is from yesterday's verse and this morning's 2 verses, pleasing Vishnu. So the duty of an administrator is to know of that, to know what or who he is, and to do that with himself and with those who he's leading, so that Krishna will be pleased. So Brahma knows how, he's instructing Manu how, he writes Manu Samhita for all of mankind, and similarly anyone that's in a leadership position. This is an administrator, but the principle goes as well for mother, father, teacher, guru, a head of state. Same principle for all 5 of those entities. You take the position of leadership, it's a great responsibility. And as Prabhupada is writing, otherwise he will fail in the onerous duty entrusted to him and thus be punishable by the supreme authority. So that's the principle. Then the next verse, it flows naturally. Who's that worshipable one? Well, he gives the name. Janardana. Janardana is the name of Supersoul. Based upon the position of the symbols of Vishnu in the hands of Vishnu, names are given. And Janardana is the name of the Lord of the Heart. And the Lord of the Heart, the verse is saying, it connects with duties of mankind. It's sacrifice unto Vishnu. And more specifically, sacrifice unto Janardana. Because what does Janardana do? He maya jakshena prakriti suyate sacharatram. He oversees adhyaksha prakriti. He controls prakriti. He doesn't get his hands dirty. He does through potencies, but he, through his potencies, controls material nature. Interesting. What Prabhupada is presenting in the purport is, although he's the supreme authority, he has an authority above him, or an entity above him that is his source, that's Krishna. Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. I learned this from Radhika Raman. In his language, Vishnu is a suppressed, not in the psychological sense, but in the ontological sense. The fullness of Bhagavan is not presented in the manifestation of Paramatma. The Rupa Goswami's so many percentage of the total qualities of Krishna within Vishnu, and then Krishna has more. So because of the function, Vishnu doesn't exhibit everything. But tattva-wise, he's the same, but Paramatma has a specific function, and the specific function is in relation to Prakriti. It's part of our sambandha gyan, understanding these things. And people that don't have this guidance of great souls, it's a mind spin. Because there are different aspects of the non-dual absolute truth, and some focus on this, that, or the other thing, and some just get confused. And the confusion results in, pablum. Brahman. All of these other things are upadis, and all there really is Brahman, and that's it. And Brahman is also, anyway, our Vaishnava teaching gives us a clear picture of what the big picture. What's Brahman, what is Paramatma, what is Bhagavan. So while making reference, Brahma is giving reference to the Paramatma feature as Janardana, and he is the one unto whom sacrifices are to be offered. People are making sacrifice anyway. People are undergoing austerities anyway. People are giving in charity anyway. And the Bhagavad Gita's teaching and Brahma's teaching to Manu make those sacrifices, the formal ones, the rituals within the Vedas, or the generic sacrifices that we make all the time. Make that as a sacrifice unto Vishnu, because he's the Bhokta. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. So you do some yajna, formal or informal, Vedic or just live your life, and that the duties of life should be in accord with the codes of Manu or the codes of Varnashram, And the purpose of those codes is to satisfy Vishnu. The purpose of all the Vedas, the purpose of life, but people don't know. They have so if they don't know, they have something else as the goal. There's a very interesting conversation between Prabhupada and a very friendly, affectionate German professor, Professor Durkheim. And as they got to know each other, it became regular exchanges. And of course, being a professor, he had a perspective on things. And one of his perspectives on education or knowledge was knowledge for knowledge's sake. And Prabhupada would disagree. No, knowledge has to have some application. And Durkheim would say, that's not necessary. Knowledge for knowledge's sake. Be in this detached mood and just have knowledge. And Prabhupada was, disagreeing. And finally, he was doing it gently and finally got really heavy. And that ended the conversation on knowledge for knowledge's sake. Practical application. That's the practical application is Vishnu is to be pleased, or Krishna is to be pleased. Sacrificing knowledge for removal of ignorance, and then what do you do with that removal of ignorance condition? You submit yourself to Krishna. So that's the principle. Then you go to the detail of whatever it is. Cooking the kitchen is a real easy one. Or going to buy the ingredients that you're going to cook in the kitchen. Similarly. Or when you're earning money to buy the ingredients to make your offerings to Krishna. You keep going down and down and down, and everything that you do, not only, be a good person, be moral and don't hurt other people, and that's certainly, but what's the purpose of that? And if you don't have that purpose in place, the line keeps moving. Because there's no standard. There's no person, it's vox populi. It's, the waves of the modes of nature move. And then there's liberals, conservatives, and moderates, but it keeps moving because there's no real standard. People are like a ship at sea without a captain. Very dangerous. Just a little anecdote on Vishnu is to be pleased, and he gives Dharma. Some number of years ago, long time ago, one devotee, his father was a professor at the University of Mississippi, in Oxford, Mississippi. Prasanatma is the name. And disciple of Hridayananda Maharaj, and we knew each other, so he invited me to go to the University of Mississippi. And his father had 2 PhDs, religion and philosophy, and he was a professor. I don't know which one. And so I spoke at his class, or some gathering that he arranged, and there was also a Sri Vaishnava family. Their name was Sridhar. This devotee is American, his father's American. 2 children. Prasanatma was one. Dr. Sridharan, also a professor, had a son who was the valedictorian of the state of Mississippi, and he was graduating from high school at 14 with a full scholarship at Brandeis University. And he was off at special school. So I hadn't met him until that time. So he came home, and he was on his way to the White House because the outstanding student for every state, all 50, got to go to the White House and meet whoever the president was at that time. But so he was like, a bright person. He ended up becoming a graduate from Stanford University with a PhD in nuclear physics. Bright young man. So he said, "Can I ask you a question?" This is after the program, just with the families. My friends at school have challenged me, "Why are you a theist? On what grounds are you a theist?" Because a more honest position is, you don't know. So why don't you take the position we take, that is, an agnostic moralist? You don't do things that are wrong because they're wrong. You do things that are right because they're right. You're a moralist, but you don't honestly, you don't know whether there's God or not. Do you know whether there's God or not? You don't know. Be honest. So I didn't know how to answer them. So I asked Mom and Dad, and they said, "You can ask Swamiji, he's coming soon." So here's what I said. It's just a practical application of the same principle. What's morality? Everything changes. Take anything, abortion or, anything. Take anything. Anything. So here's an example. I have a friend, devotee, who's involved with the Board of Education of New York City, and this was, some years ago. They had a big fun time. They were saying what it took to get expelled from a classroom 10 years ago and today. So 10 years ago, if you spoke out of turn without raising your hand, you were asked to leave the room. Or if you threw a spit wad in the classroom, you were asked to leave the room. Or if you talked back to the teacher, you were asked to leave the room. 10 years later, if you're carrying a concealed weapon, you're asked to leave the room. Or sent to the principal. If you threatened the life of another student in the classroom, you're asked to leave the room and go see the principal. And if you get the third one, you also intimidate or threaten the life of the teacher if they don't do what you want, or if they insist that you do what they want. You threaten their life. You're asked to leave the room. So, where the line, when there's no standard, we accept. In one sense, it's practical. I accept that there's God because otherwise there's no real standard. It's just fudging and pragmatism, and there's no real standard of what's morality. But conversely, according to our scripture, God gives standards. Dharmam hi sakshat bhagavat prinitam. And that's the standard, doesn't change over time. Or, the modes of nature move this way, that way. It says, this is the standard. And just like fire burns, and if you don't know that fire burns, it doesn't not burn, because you didn't know. There are laws. There are laws that are the morality laws, or any other laws of nature. And you're denying that there's laws doesn't mean you're free from the laws. So here, the administrators may not know. And if they don't, they're punishable by the supreme authority. So, do people accept God as the supreme authority? God gives the standards of how administrators should administrate. Well, why? I don't. Okay, you don't. That's a free will choice. And then there's consequences. for you and for others. So Brahma is not whimsical. If he, his assignment is creation. So he doesn't just like build the creation and then away, because the creation has a purpose. All things have a purpose. And he's instructing, so there has to be a leader. And the leader has to know what the purpose is and how to fulfill it, and then act accordingly. And Manu is such a person. So we're getting the opportunity by reading Srimad Bhagavatam to understand the purpose of everything. And it's not just information, it's the means to live our lives properly in a place that's really problematic. Material world. In Kali Yuga, it escalates the problematic nature of the place. Then, the last point is the interest of the Supreme Self is the interest of the individual self. And conversely, one who neglects the Supreme Self is neglecting his own self-interest. Or it's the same as this idea that when you, from our prayers of Prabhat, when someone offers something to the Supreme Lord, the person that's benefiting is the one who's making the offering to the Supreme Lord. Because he doesn't need anything. He's self-sufficient. So the person who's receiving the benefit is the one who's making the offering to the Supreme Lord. That's really one's self-interest. A calculating person may think, this is my self-interest, I'm going to do it because it's my self-interest. But the higher position is, I want to do this because this is who I really am. This is my real nature. And then self-interest and happiness and knowledge and everything else follows the horse that pulls the cart. And maturing in devotional service, in practical terms for us, is becoming more and more clear with everything we say and do. That's the purpose. We make decisions based upon that purpose. And if we're not thinking that purpose, it's really easy to get off the center of the road and get into risky territory. There are tendencies, and it's really easy just to do the tendency thing. Like a car where the alignment is not right, and you let your hands off the steering wheel, and it pulls over to the left or to the right. So you have to keep your hand on the steering wheel. It's better to get alignment done. So if the senses, the mind and the intelligence and the heart are in alignment, then intelligence drives the mind, drives the senses towards the goal. Unfortunately, alignment is not always right because we're conditioned and we have tendencies. And we follow those tendencies because they're tendencies. They govern us. Bhakti means declare war. And Maya fights back. She doesn't say, oh, he's very serious, or she's very serious. I'll let them go. It doesn't work like that. But still one has to remain serious and with commitment and depending upon proper conduct and the purpose for that proper conduct. Then we get strength beyond our own strength and we get closer to the goal and the conditioning slackens. Then we don't we should become complacent because, I got some relief. Just stay focused. The complete process of perfectional service is to render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, Bhakti Uttama, who is known as Janardana. Discussion? Yes.
Maharaj, I have two questions. First one is, how do I know what are my tendencies or what is my real nature? How do I discriminate or distinguish between?
Well, real nature is the spiritual one and tendencies are the conditioned ones. Put your hand in your bead bag and start chanting and then you'll find out what your tendencies are. The mind goes there, and the mind goes there, and the mind goes. Those are tendencies. And then if the legs go, follow the mind. Step back and be the observer of the mind. And you'll find tendencies. You won't notice it if you're caught up in the movie. You'll be just ruled by the tendencies, and you won't even know what your tendencies are. You have to have some detachment, knowing what the mind is. You saw that this presentation in Naperville, the television screen and the person looking at the blank television. The mind is just like carrying images of our past impressions, and we have our favorite ones. And there's some more prominent, some more recessive, and that's our tendencies. Just see where the mind goes, that tells you your tendencies. Ask your friends, they'll tell you.
My question about real nature is from a practical perspective, Maharaj,
You have to wait for that. Start with the position of being the servant. And then details start to fill out. Don't go to the position of being the servant. Stay in the position of I'm at the center and I'm meant to be the enjoyer of stuff. You won't find your spiritual nature. Spirit servant.
And the second question I have is, you mentioned about the Manu Samhita, where it is the law book for mankind. So I was wondering if the modern day, whatever the codes we have in terms of morality, sacrifices and other things for humans, do they come from the Manu Samhita or?
Well, it depends on how much corruption has taken place over time. And so the uncorrupted is disciplic succession. And disciplic succession is made up of acharyas, and they know how to apply this nectar devotion. Principles that may adjust details without changing principles. That is Manu Samhita. Although the form may be different, the essence is preserved.
is the Shantaras. The Shantaras. I'm thinking about Shantaras as a way to try to get into service attitude.
The language is contradictory.
Okay.
Because beyond Shanta is service attitude.
Right. Sometimes I find myself that I want to be in the service attitude, but I feel like I'm not even being able to contemplate what is happening, and I'm thinking, is that because I'm not even in the Shantaras?
No, that's not the reason why.
No.
No.
Can you explain how Shantaras can be applied, or?
We don't. Just bluntly, we're introduced to Dasya. Now, examples of Shantaras that you find in Nectar Devotion: land, water, trees. Sometimes cows are put in that list. Elsewhere, they're, parental affection. They give their milk. But the encouragement, this is my understanding, the encouragement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching is we begin in this Dasya Rasa. The Dasya Rasa is a rasa. In service, the contemplation is wrong. If I'm having a struggle getting into the mood of being the service and, as you said, understanding things, that's the mind. You don't pacify the mind by Shantarasa. The mood of service. The difficulty is the mind that is thinking, I want to be the enjoyer. It's the mind. It's the contamination of the mind. And the free will choice that says, I want to be in Krishna service, I don't want it, I'm rebellious. I want to be peaceful on my own terms. And the situation here isn't a peaceful one. Dasya is, I want to be in my relationship with Krishna, serving him, pleasing him, in the humble, menial servant role. So go there.
So at any point do we experience on the way to Shanta, on the way to perform devotional service, at any point do we experience Chantarasa?
Perhaps. There's not much discussion about that I'm aware of. Devotees, sadhakas, having their rasa as Shantarasa, and that's where they go. In the mature stages, become a Chintamani stone in the spiritual world. Neutrality. So I don't know how to on authoritative statements, I don't know any authoritative statement that says yes to your question. Therefore, perhaps. Rather, the explanation is always given, not always, almost always given, that the mode of service takes one into this active engaging the senses in service of the master of the senses. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam. And that's not neutrality. Anyone else? You always have something.
I've been thinking about something as you've been speaking. There's Vishnu. He seems to like things very ordered and regular.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm of a particular personality type that I very much in my life have taken shelter of order and regularity.
Great. Vishnu Bhakti.
Maybe for material ends.
Okay.
But it also seems that though Krishna likes that, it seems that I need to harmonize order with flexibility.
Sure.
When being considerate and things.
Because you're not the controller.
Yeah, and I would like to hear a little bit about this.
Well, you're subordinate to the controller.
Right.
That's the flexibility part.
Mm-hmm. But that controller wants me to be ordered, and then he throws a wrench in it.
You just have to follow what his order is, not yours. That's the flexibility part.
Mm. And being attuned to that in the moment. Oftentimes it happens like in the moment.
Yeah, you got it. That's the flexibility part. You have to have a plan. You can't live your life, planless. You want to go from point A to point B. You take steps to go to point A to point B. All of a sudden, you're heading for point C. You've got to be flexible. Is this really what, is this the plan of the Supreme Lord? It's a little bit very similar to what happened here a few verses ago. Brahma was considering, I just did all this universe thing and I made some arrangements so there could be Prajapatis, but it's not happening. I was going from point A to point B, and here's C. So I'll accept it as a providential arrangement, and then voila, came the answer. Now, it's not for us. Voila, here comes the answer. Here comes Shatarupa and Swayambhu Manu take care of the situation that's the flexibility built because I'm so powerful. But Brahma is so powerful. So for us, it's an inspiration how to make a proper free will choice given the new circumstance, that unexpected circumstance. That's the flexibility part. Super soul will guide. Yenamamupiyatite. How to come to him, because that's the goal. And flexibility is built in. Because the goal doesn't change. The principles don't change either. But, the plan may change. And that's the flexibility part. But the goal and the principles don't change. And I'm happy with that. I like being the servant. I like being, you start in the morning heading this direction, and before the end of the day we're going in that direction. That's just fine. If that's what Krishna wants. Yeah.
Maharaj, how to overcome the fear of failure?
I know what you mean. Depends what you want. The way to overcome the fear of failure has to do with what's the definition of success. It's one of the segments of this art of meditation, overcoming negative emotions. And there's this whole thing, interactive session where we ask the audience in pairs or in groups or whatever to discuss what's the standard of success, how did you reach that standard of success, is that really your standard of success? Or is it something you just bought into because that's what's out there? That it changes, and then there's categories of things that determine largely, sociological influences. And so what's really success? So it's like overcoming the sense of failure is to redefine what success is. And then you do that. I'll give a little example. Past week, I was found myself in this. I was busy with stuff, but this letter came with somebody that was spiraling out of control in a depression direction, thinking, for the last 2 years everything's been a failure, everything with academics and career and relationships, and I'm a failure. One of the responses is I sent this devotee, explained it, but sent them this image I liked from this presentation. It shows under microscope an embroidery or a tapestry, and there's different colored threads going in all different directions, and it's really chaotic. It's like, my life is chaos, I'm a failure. But you take the microscope lens away and you see what the embroidery looks like, and it's beautiful. There's a plan. So when I don't know what the plan is, I can be in anxiety and fearful and feel myself a failure because, the plan didn't happen. Instead it's going all this other crazy thing. And it doesn't make any sense to me, and so different negative emotions. Failure is one of them. And it's a big deal in modern times. As one of the slides says, 100 years ago, it's just a bump in the road, and today it's like you get labeled. And you label yourself. Called depression. It's one of the triggers for depression. And it's societal. Not a failure. You just didn't know the big picture. You're heading in the morning going this way, then you're over there. And so I failed. So this devotee, it was like one of the things that they were obsessing about was their career. Just like, it's not working out, and I don't. So it was really simple. What are the things that you've done that you really like? And it was really easy. So they should do that. She said, yeah. All I've been doing is thinking about money. And nothing was working out. So I'm thinking I'm a failure. And it's just, really the lesson, the threads that were going this way, that way, different colors, was money, really? Is that what happiness is? Is that how you make decisions? And what's success? Get money? And where'd you get that idea? From society, the material society. So step back from that one. What's success? So, without details of how the rest of the conversation went, it was like, phew, I'm not a failure. I wasn't really headed for depression. I thought I was. I just didn't see the big picture. And I was disconnected from who I really am, on the material side at least. And other than, the superimposed, these are the standards of success you have to conform to. Otherwise you're a failure. So what's success? And even steps in the direction of success is success. It got resolved in, really quickly. There was an opportunity for some employment that they could get in 2 months training. And I said, it's not like that's what you have to do for the rest of your life. Whatever you learn, you can use that for the rest of your life, but you may not be doing that for the rest of your life. But do something that's meaningful to you. It's doable. And you have something that inspires you. It had to do with a junior high school teacher that was teaching something or other, and the way that they taught, it really touched them. So I think in this field I can be like that. At least I can try to be like that. Great. That's success. Step in the right direction. Be who you are. Instead of like get money. It's not that, mom and dad were putting that pressure, it's just so. Suggestion from mom and dad had to do with how she can get money. Go into IT because you can get money. I don't like IT. Anyway, law. Get money. Connect with who you are. Peel away the layers of, okay, that's not who I am. Who am I? Or Sanatana Goswami's, what am I? And how do I live my life that way? That's success. Like, the question yesterday, Deva Madhava's question about being a human being, what's the essence of being a human being? It's knowing who you are. That's success. And don't do that. At the end of the conveyor belt, you have all these successes and not failures. It's a failure. It's not an easy question to answer. Who am I? It's tough. It's very elusive. It's uncomfortable to know that you don't know. Don't ask the question. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai.